Ratcliffe, the head of the CIA, he said it was a good start. Then you've got Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, just using some emojis. MAR, we assume, is Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. He says, "Good job, Pete, and your team." Kudos to all, chimes in Susie Wiles, the White House Chief of Staff, and then the Presidential Envoy, Steve Witkoff. He's just got a few more emojis. It's astonishingly casual way of talking about a bombing raid which the Houthis say killed 53 people. It's obviously a pretty big security breach as well. President Trump was asked about it earlier and said he didn't actually know anything about this at all.
Having to do with what were they talking about? The Houthis. The Houthis, you mean the attack on the Houthis? Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
Now, the White House has confirmed that the messages are authentic, so this journalist really was accidentally added to this group. And the White House press secretary has come out and said, well, the point is that the attacks on the Houthi targets were successful, and says that the president has every confidence in his national security team, despite this absolutely stunning security breach.
All right. Sarah, thank you for that. Sarah Smith, our North America editor there, live in Washington.
Think travel, think Waka now. Think flights, think Waka now. Think visa, think Waka now. Think hotels, think Waka now. Think holidays, think Waka now. Travel with Waka now. Let's go. Waka now. Let's go.
The East Africa corridor covers 8 countries. It will soon be home to 500 million people sitting on some of the richest natural resources on the continent. While the rest of Africa is trying desperately to unlock growth, the East Africa corridor is powering ahead. What does that success mean for the rest of the continent? Let's find out in the Blue Space.
Visit standardbank.com/bluespace to find out more about the Blue Space.
I want to go back to what I addressed at the outset. This was not only sloppy, it not only violated all procedures, but if this information had gotten out, American lives could have been lost. The Houthis had this information and could reposition their defensive systems. So I want to get a little more information about this. Director Gabbard, did you participate in a group chat with Secretary of Defense and other Trump senior officials discussing the Yemen war plans?
Senator, I don't want to get into the specifics.
Ma'am, were you on? You're not going to be willing to address. So you're not. Are you denying? Will you answer my question, ma'am? You were not TG on this group chat.
I'm not going to get into the specifics.
So you refuse to acknowledge whether you were on this group chat.
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
Because this is currently under review by the National Security.
Because it's all classified? If it's not classified, share the text now.
As the White House previously
Is it
stated,
classified or non-classified information on this text?
I can confirm.
Director Radcliffe, were you on the group chat?
Senator, but I think it's important because at the outset, you made a couple of comments about signal messaging using encrypted apps. So that we're clear, one of the first things that happened when I was confirmed as CIA director was Signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers. One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of Signal as a permissible
Questions. If you're making the statement,
point. Well,
if you're making the statement, the Signal is a secure channel.
No, can I answer that? It is.
I've got a series
end decryption. So
it is. I understand.
It is permissible to use to communicate and coordinate for work purposes, provided, Senator, that any decisions that are made are also recorded through formal channels. Right. So those were procedures that were implemented. My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with those processes, and finally, just please. So my communications, to be clear, in a Signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
We will make that determination, because if it's not classified, share the text with the committee. Let me go on. Director Gabbard, you are the security executive and set access guidelines for classified information. Did you contact the defense secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a SCIF?
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then, if there was no classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security. Bobbing and weaving and trying to, filibuster your answer. So please answer the question. If this was Director Gabbard, if this was a rank and file intelligence officer who did this kind of careless behavior, what would you do with them?
Senator, I'll reiterate that there was no classified material that was shared in that.
And if there's no classified materials, share. And then if there's no classified materials, then you can't even answer the question whether you were on the chat. This is strangely familiar, and I think my colleagues will remember, when you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor? Man, I have serious doubts about your... Anyway, Director Gabbard, I'm going to give you this. Tweeted just 11 days ago, and I'm quoting you. Any unauthorized release of classified information is a violation of the law and will be treated as such. So if this information is classified, what are you going to do?
Senator, 2 points here. First of all, there's a difference between inadvertent release versus
careless and sloppy,
malicious leaks of classified information. The second point is There was no classified information that was on
And the
the
information,
signal
you should get that information.
and the National Security
Patel, my time's about out, and I'm going to use my 12 seconds that the chairman came. Director Patel, has the FBI launched any investigation of this?
Senator, I was just briefed about it late last night and this morning. I don't have an update.
I would like to get an answer by the end of the day.
Download Glovo, order from your favorite restaurants in town and satisfy your cravings. Glovo, order anything, we deliver in minutes.
In Drive, choose a fair price for your ride.
Gabbard, I didn't intend to get into the Jeffrey Goldberg story, but something you said has sort of puzzled me. According to open source reporting at 11:44 on the morning of March 15th, Secretary Hegseth put into this group text a detailed operation plan, including targets, the weapons we were going to be using, attack sequences, and timing. And yet you've testified that nothing in that chain was classified. Wouldn't that be classified? What if that had been made public that morning before the attack took place?
Senator, I can attest to the fact that there were no classified or intelligence equities that were included in that chat group at any time.
So,
and I
so the
defer,
attack sequencing and timing and weapons and targets you don't consider to should have been classified?
I defer
or
to the
classified?
Secretary of Defense, the National Security Council on that question.
Well, you're the head of you're the head of the intelligence community. You're supposed to know about classifications. So your testimony very clearly today is that nothing was in that set of texts that were classified. I'll follow up on Senator Wyden's question. If that's the case, please release that whole text stream so that the public can have a view of what actually transpired on this discussion. It's hard for me to believe that targets and timing and weapons would not have been classified.
Does the CIA have any rules about handling of classified information? Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you, Director Radcliffe. Do you agree Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said this morning when asked by members of the press what had happened, he said this morning in Hawaii that Atlantic Editor-in-Chief Jeff Goldberg is a, quote, deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of providing hoaxes time and time again. Do you share that evaluation, the Secretary of Defense's evaluation of Jeff Goldberg as a journalist?
Senator, I didn't see those comments. I don't know Jeff Goldberg.
So do you share that view of the Secretary of Defense?
Well, I don't have a view on.
Okay. Do you assuming that he has that view, I'm curious about whether you are the. Please answer the question. You don't insult the intelligence of the American people. Finish your sentence, please.
Clearly, he was added to this signal group. Your question is,
you don't know that the president's national security advisor invited him to join the signal thread. Everybody in America knows that. Does the CIA director not know that?
I've seen conflicting reports about who added the reporter to the signal message.
It's perfectly appropriate that there was a reporter added, especially one that the Secretary of Defense says is deceitful, highly discredited, a so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes over and over again. Is your testimony that it was appropriate that he was? You are the mischaracterizing my testimony. You answer the question. Let me ask you. When he was added to the thread, you're the CIA director. Why didn't you call out that he was present on the signal thread?
I don't know if you use signal messaging app.
I do, not for classified information, not for targeting.
Well, neither do I, Senator.
Remote.
Neither do I, Senator.
Well, that's what your testimony is today.
It absolutely is not, Senator. Were you not listening at the beginning?
No.
When I said that I was using it as permitted, and it is permissible.
I agree that's your testimony.
Yeah.
I agree that's your testimony. You asked me if I use it, and I said not for targeting, not for classified information.
And I said I don't either.
I also know Jeff Goldberg. I don't use it to communicate with him, but you thought it was appropriate. By the way, I think he's one of the more outstanding journalists in America, but I'm shocked to find him on a thread that he's reading in the parking lot of a grocery store in Washington, D.C., and your testimony as the director of the CIA is that it's totally appropriate. Is it appropriate?
No, that is not what I.
Okay,
go ahead. When did I use the word appropriate?
Well, go ahead, please.
Well, I didn't.
That everybody in America,
clearly,
Senator, here is what your testimony is.
No, I never said
this
that.
Is just a normal day at the CIA where we chat about this kind of stuff over signal. In fact, it's so normal that the last administration left it here for us. That's your testimony today.
That's your testimony.
No, that's not my testimony. That's what you said.
I didn't say any of those things that you just related.
I heard you say it. We'll let the American people decide. Let me ask you one final point. I'm out of time.
Well, are you going to give me a chance?
Is it appropriate? Did you know that the president's Middle East advisor was in Moscow on this thread while you were, as director of the CIA, participating in this thread? Were you aware of that? Are you aware of that today?
I'm not aware of that.
This sloppiness, this incompetence, this disrespect for our intelligence agencies